My name is Faye Terrell. I'm 31. At 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in October, I was standing in my apartment in Chelsea holding Nathan's Columbia sweatshirt when my father called to tell me they wouldn't be attending the funeral because they had an appointment with Dr. Benjamin Voss that was too important to reschedule. The funeral was in 43 hours. My husband had been dead for 6 days. The temperature in my apartment was 68 degrees, but I couldn't stop shaking. "What kind of appointment?" I asked. My voice sounded like someone else's voice, flat and far away. "A consultation," my father said. His tone had that edge to it, the one he used when he was being reasonable and I was being difficult. "Your mother and I have been talking to Dr. Voss about your situation. We think it's best if we have professional guidance on how to help you through this." "Help me through what? Nathan died? I'm grieving. That's not a situation, Dad. That's called being a widow." "Faye," my mother's voice cut in. She'd been on the extension the whole time. "Don't be dramatic. Dr. Voss specializes in complex grief. He's been very clear that the way you've been handling this isn't healthy." "Handling what? I planned a funeral. I called the crematorium. I signed papers. What part of that isn't healthy?" "You haven't cried once," my mother said. "Not at the hospital. Not when you called us. Not when you were making arrangements." "That's concerning, sweetheart." The sweatshirt in my hands still smelled like Nathan's deodorant, Old Spice and coffee. I'd worn it for 4 days straight. I hadn't washed it because washing it felt like erasing him. "I cried," I said. "You just weren't there." "We're trying to be there now," my father said. "Dr. Voss has an opening this Thursday at 2 p.m. It's the only slot he has available for the next 3 weeks. We can't pass it up." "The funeral is Thursday at noon." "We know," my mother said. "But Faye, you have to understand. This is about your long-term well-being. One day won't matter in the grand scheme of things. Nathan would want us to prioritize your mental health." Something cold slid down my spine. Don't tell me what Nathan would want. "Faye, his funeral is Thursday, noon, Ridgewood Community Church. If you don't come, don't bother calling me again." I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. It hit the hardwood floor and the screen cracked in a perfect diagonal line from corner to corner. Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. My sister Chloe texted me 17 minutes later. "Mom just called. Really, Faye? You're going to make this about you? They're trying to help and you're being selfish as usual." I didn't respond. I sat on the floor next to Nathan's sweatshirt and stared at the crack in my phone screen until the light outside changed from afternoon to evening. Let me take you back 9 years to the day I met Nathan Terrell. I was 22, working part-time at the Metropolitan Museum of Art's information desk while finishing my degree at Columbia. It was a Wednesday morning in April, and a man in a gray suit approached my station holding a crumpled printout of a Monet painting. "I'm supposed to meet someone at this painting," he said. "But I can't read my own handwriting and I don't know which gallery it's in." I looked at the printout. "Water lilies, European paintings, Gallery 819. Second floor, turn right at the top of the stairs. Follow the signs for Impressionism." "You didn't even have to look it up." "I'm an art history major. Monet's kind of my thing." He smiled. It was the kind of smile that made his whole face change. "I'm Nathan. I'm here for a first date and I'm 15 minutes early, which means I'm going to look desperate." "Or punctual," I said. "Punctual is attractive." "Is it?" He leaned against the desk. "What else is attractive? I'm taking notes." I laughed, knowing the difference between Monet and Manet. "They're different people?" "Oh, no, you're doomed." We talked for 12 minutes. His date never showed up. He asked if I wanted to get coffee after my shift ended. I said yes. 6 months later, he proposed in front of water lilies. 3 months after that, we got married at City Hall wearing jeans and Columbia hoodies, and my parents didn't come because they said City Hall weddings didn't count. Nathan never forgot that. He never forgot a lot of things. The day after I hung up on my parents, my mother showed up at the museum. I was in my office, a closet-sized room on the third floor, where I worked as an associate director coordinating the Resilience in Art exhibition, when my assistant Marissa knocked. "Your mom's here," she said. Her voice had that careful tone people use when they're trying not to get involved. "She says it's urgent." I found my mother in the lobby, standing next to the information desk where I'd met Nathan. She was wearing her church clothes, navy dress, pearl earrings, the expression that said she was being patient with me. "Faye, we need to talk." "I'm working. This will only take a minute." She glanced around at the tourists and school groups. "Somewhere private." I led her to my office. She looked at the desk covered in exhibition layouts and funding proposals, at the framed photo of Nathan and me at our Columbia graduation, at the nameplate that said, "Faye Terrell, Associate Director." "You've done well for yourself," she said. It didn't sound like a compliment. "What do you want, Mom?" She sat down in the chair across from my desk without being invited. "Your father and I went to see Dr. Voss yesterday. Without you, obviously, since you refused to come. He's very concerned about your mental state." "He's never met me." "We described your behavior, the isolation, the refusal to accept help, the way you're throwing yourself into work instead of processing your grief. He thinks you might be having a dissociative episode." I stared at her. "A what?" "You're not acting like yourself, Faye. You haven't cried at all. You're making irrational decisions. You hung up on your father. You threatened to cut us off if we didn't attend a funeral that, frankly, is going to happen whether we're there or not. Get out." "Faye, get out of my office. Get out of this building. Don't come back." She stood slowly, smoothing her dress. "Doctor, Voss says denial is common in cases like this. We're going to help you whether you want us to or not. That's what family does." "Nathan was my family. You're just people I'm related to." Her face changed. Something sharp moved behind her eyes. "You always were ungrateful, even as a child. Your sister Chloe never spoke to us like this." "Chloe never had to." My mother left. Marissa appeared in the doorway 30 seconds later with a bottle of water and a concerned expression. "You okay?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I will be." I wasn't. That night, my neighbor Mrs. Chen from 4B knocked on my door. She was holding a casserole dish and wearing the look people get when they're about to say something awkward. "Faye, honey, I don't want to overstep, but I ran into your mother in the lobby this afternoon. She mentioned you've been struggling since your husband passed. If you need anything, meals, someone to talk to, help with arrangements, I'm here." "I'm fine," I said, "but thank you." She also mentioned you might not be thinking clearly right now, that you've been acting erratically. The casserole dish was warm against my hands. I could feel my pulse in my teeth. "What else did she say?" Mrs. Chen shifted uncomfortably. "Just that she's worried, that you're not yourself. She asked me to call her if I noticed anything concerning." "Like what?" She didn't specify. Just anything unusual. I handed the casserole back. "I appreciate your concern, Mrs. Chen, but I'm managing. I don't need you to report back to my mother." "Oh, I wouldn't." "You just did." I closed the door. Through the peephole, I watched her stand there for a full minute before walking away. The funeral was Thursday at noon. 63 people came. My parents weren't among them, neither was my sister. Nathan's college roommate gave a eulogy. Our attorney, James Whitfield, sat in the front row and squeezed my hand during the closing prayer. At 2:14 p.m., while I was standing in the church parking lot watching people drive away, my father texted, "Dr. Voss confirmed our concerns. We're exploring options for getting you the help you need. Please don't make this harder than it has to be." I forwarded the text to James Whitfield. He called me 6 minutes later. "Faye, I need you to come to my office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Don't tell anyone you're coming." "Why?" "Because Nathan asked me to wait until after the funeral to give you something, and I think your parents are about to do exactly what he said they would." I went home. I sat on my couch in Nathan's sweatshirt. I stared at my phone. At 6:51 p.m., my mother called. Sweetheart, we've been talking to Dr. Voss and a lawyer. We think the best thing for you right now is a temporary psychiatric evaluation. Just 72 hours in a safe environment where professionals can assess your needs and make sure you're not a danger to yourself. My stomach dropped. A 72-hour hold? It's called a temporary commitment. Dr. Voss can sign the paperwork based on our observations and the concerning behaviors we've documented. He thinks it's the kindest option, given your current state. What current state? I'm sitting on my couch. You're isolated. You're hostile. You're refusing help. You made threats against your own family. These are warning signs, Faye. I didn't make threats. I set a boundary. Dr. Voss disagrees. He's already spoken to a judge about an emergency order. If you won't go voluntarily, we may have to pursue involuntary commitment. I hung up. My hands were shaking again. I called James Whitfield. He answered on the first ring. They're trying to commit me, I said. I know, Nathan knew too. Come to my office tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. Don't answer any more calls tonight. Don't open your door for anyone. I'll explain everything in the morning. I didn't sleep. At 3:22 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. Voices. My father's voice, low and measured. She's not answering. Dr. Voss said we should document the refusal to engage. That'll help with the petition. At 8:47 a.m., I left my apartment through the service entrance and took a cab to James Whitfield's office in Midtown. He was waiting in the lobby. They filed the petition this morning, he said. Emergency psychiatric evaluation. Your father signed as the concerned family member. Dr. Voss signed as the recommending physician. They're claiming you're a danger to yourself based on erratic behavior and refusal of care. Can they do that? I haven't done anything. They're doing it. The hearing is Monday at 2 p.m. But Faye, Nathan prepared for this. He knew your family. He knew exactly what they'd try. And he led me to a conference room. On the table sat a sealed manila envelope with my name written in Nathan's handwriting. He gave this to me 8 months ago. He said if anything happened to him, I was supposed to wait until your parents made their move. He was very specific. Wait until they try for guardianship or commitment. Then give you this. My hands were shaking as I opened the envelope. Inside were 3 documents: a letter, a bank statement, and a legal filing. The letter was 2 pages, single-spaced, in Nathan's neat architect's handwriting. I read it standing up. Then I sat down and read it again. Dear Faye, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And your parents are already trying to take control of your life the way they tried to take control of your grandmother Dorothy's life 8 years ago. I knew they would. I've been watching them watch you since we got married. Do you remember the day we met at the Met? You told me about your family exactly once, 3 weeks into dating, and you said, they love my sister, they tolerate me. I told you that wasn't good enough. You said, it's fine, I've made my peace with it. You were lying. I could tell because you wouldn't look at me when you said it. I started documenting everything after your grandmother died. Your mother tried to get guardianship over Dorothy 6 months before she passed, claiming dementia and financial mismanagement. She used the same Dr. Benjamin Voss to sign the medical recommendation. She isolated Dorothy from her friends, told the neighbors Dorothy was declining, and started a whisper campaign about Dorothy's competency. It failed because Dorothy's personal physician, Dr. Sarah Park, who'd known her for 30 years, testified that Dorothy was completely sound. But I watched how your mother operated. I saw the playbook. When we bought our first loft in Chelsea 3 years ago, your father called me. He said, you know Faye's not good with money, right? She's always been impulsive. You should probably handle the finances yourself, for her protection. I said, Faye has a master's degree from Columbia and manages a 7-figure exhibition budget. I think she can handle a mortgage. He said, suit yourself. But don't say we didn't warn you. That's when I knew. I set up the irrevocable trust 18 months ago. Every property, every investment account, every dollar of my estate is protected from guardianship or conservatorship claims. If anyone tries to take control of your finances by claiming you're incompetent, the trust automatically transfers management to James Whitfield and forensic accountant Maggie Chen until you're ready to take over. No one can touch it. Not your parents, not Dr. Voss, not any judge. I also documented every time your father asked me for money. 47 requests over 3 years, always small amounts. $800 for church repairs, $1,200 for Chloe's medical bills, $2,400 for emergency car maintenance. I said no every time. I kept records of every text, every voicemail, every passive-aggressive comment at family dinners about how successful people help their struggling parents. 2 months ago, I hired Maggie to audit your father's role as church treasurer. She found $47,200 in missing donations over 36 months. 47 transfers from the church account to your father's personal account. I have the full report. It's with James. Last month, Chloe accidentally forwarded you an email meant for your mother. Subject line: Wedding budget. The spreadsheet attached showed $48,000 in expenses charged to F accounts, your accounts, Faye, your future inheritance. They were already planning how to spend money they thought they'd get when they took control of your life. The documents in this envelope are: 1. The irrevocable trust protecting our estate, $8.5 million cash, 6 Manhattan properties, investment accounts. 2. Maggie's forensic audit showing your father's embezzlement from Ridgewood Community Church. 3. Recordings of your mother's conversations with Dr. Voss. I hired a PI after your grandmother died. The recordings are legal, made in public spaces where there's no expectation of privacy. 4. Witness statements from 3 of Dorothy's friends describing your mother's 2016 guardianship attempt. 5. A letter from your Aunt Helen, your mother's sister, describing the family pattern of financial control and gaslighting. You are not unstable, you are not incompetent, you are grieving, and grief looks different on everyone. Some people cry for months. Some people throw themselves into work. Both are normal. Both are healthy. Your parents see your grief as an opportunity. They see 6 Manhattan properties and $8.5 million, and a daughter who's alone and vulnerable. They're wrong about the vulnerable part. You've never been vulnerable. You're the woman who put herself through Columbia while working 3 jobs. You're the woman who built a career in one of the most competitive fields in New York. You're the woman I fell in love with because you were strong enough to walk away from people who didn't deserve you. Walk away now. James knows what to do. Maggie has the evidence. Your Aunt Helen is ready to testify about your mother's history. The trust is airtight. I'm sorry I can't be there to stand next to you in court. I'm sorry you have to do this alone. But Faye, you were never alone. You have always been enough, exactly as you are. I told you once that I'd always find you. I meant it, even now. All my love, your architect. P.S. The combination to the safe in the Chelsea loft is your Columbia student ID number. Inside is the original trust document and $50,000 cash for legal fees. Don't tell anyone it's there until you need it. I read the letter 3 times. James sat across from me, quiet and patient. When I finally looked up, my face was wet. I hadn't realized I was crying. He knew, I said. He knew. How long have you had this? 8 months. He updated it every few weeks. The last update was 2 weeks before the car accident. He added the detail about Chloe's wedding budget email. I looked at the bank statement, the forensic audit, the recordings transcribed on official letterhead. This is enough? This is more than enough. Your parents are trying to take control of your assets by claiming you're incompetent. We have proof that their real motive is financial gain. We have proof that your father is currently embezzling from a nonprofit. We have proof that your mother has attempted this exact scheme before. No judge will grant guardianship once they see this. When's the hearing? Monday at 2 p.m. But Faye, I don't think we should wait. I think we should go on offense. What do you mean? The annual church gala is Sunday night, 7 p.m. at Ridgewood Community Church Fellowship Hall. Your father is scheduled to give his yearly treasurer's report. There will be 120 people there, the entire congregation, The church board, community donors. I understood immediately. We present the audit at the gala. With your permission. It's your decision, but Nathan spent 8 months building this case because he wanted you protected. Not just legally protected, socially protected. Your parents have been running a PR campaign against you, telling neighbors you're unstable, telling church members you're grieving badly, building a narrative that you need to be managed. We destroy that narrative publicly, and the guardianship petition falls apart. They'll be humiliated. They're trying to lock you in a psychiatric ward and steal your home. Humiliation seems fair. I wiped my face. My hands had stopped shaking. Let's do it. I spent Friday and Saturday preparing with James and Maggie. We organized the evidence into a presentation. 47 transactions highlighted in red, dates and amounts cross-referenced with church donation records. Your father's personal bank statements showing matching deposits. We prepared copies for the church board, for the pastor, for the DA's office. Maggie walked me through the findings. It's textbook embezzlement, small amounts over a long period, always under $2,000 to avoid automatic bank flags. He'd take donations marked for building maintenance or mission work and transfer them to his personal account labeled as reimbursements or pastoral discretion funds. The church has no record of approving these transfers. Will he go to jail? Probably not for a first offense if he returns the money and resigns. But it'll be public record. He'll lose his position. The church will have to report it. His reputation is over. Sunday evening, I wore the black dress I'd worn to Nathan's funeral. I arrived at Ridgewood Community Church at 6:54 p.m. The fellowship hall was exactly as I remembered from years of forced attendance. Long folding tables arranged in rows, white tablecloths, centerpieces made of carnations and baby's breath, a small stage at the front with a podium and a projection screen. 120 people filled the room. I recognized most of them: Mrs. Patterson from the Women's Auxiliary, the youth pastor, Michael Reed, the choir director, people who'd known me since I was 12, who'd watched me grow up, who'd probably heard every terrible thing my mother had said about me over the last 2 weeks. My parents sat at the head table with Chloe and Pastor Raymond. My father wore his navy suit, his church treasurer badge pinned to his lapel. My mother wore pearls. Chloe wore the smile she always wore when she was the center of attention. None of them saw me come in. I sat in the back near the door. Dinner was chicken, green beans, rolls. I didn't eat. At 7:32 p.m., Pastor Raymond stood and welcomed everyone. He led a prayer. He talked about community and trust and stewardship. Then he introduced my father. As you all know, Gerald Hobbs has served as our church treasurer for 6 years. He's been a pillar of financial integrity and transparency. Tonight, as always, Gerald will present our annual financial report. Gerald! My father stood. He walked to the podium. He smiled at the congregation, the warm, trustworthy smile he'd perfected over decades. Thank you, Pastor Raymond. It's my honor to serve this community. As I do every year, I want to assure you that every dollar donated to Ridgewood Community Church is accounted for and used according to God's will and your intentions. He clicked to the first slide, a pie chart showing income and expenses. This year, we received $340,000 in donations. We spent $180,000 on building maintenance, $85,000 on mission work and outreach, $45,000 on staff salaries, and $30,000 on ministry programs. As you can see, we ended the year with a small surplus of, excuse me. Every head turned. I stood up. James Whitfield stood next to me. Maggie Chen stood on my other side, holding a laptop. My father's face went white. My mother's hand flew to her chest. Faye, Pastor Raymond said carefully, we're in the middle of the treasurer's report. If you have questions, we can discuss them after. I have evidence, I said. My voice was steady. I'd practiced this. Evidence of financial misconduct. Evidence that the congregation deserves to see before they approve this report. The room went silent. You could hear the ventilation system humming. My father's voice cut through the quiet. Faye, you're clearly still struggling after Nathan's death. Everyone here understands you're going through a difficult time, but this isn't the place. $47,200, I said. That's how much you've stolen from this church over the last 3 years. Someone gasped. Mrs. Patterson pressed a hand to her mouth. That's a lie, my father said. But his voice shook. A cruel, unhinged lie from a daughter who's having a mental breakdown. Pastor, I apologize. As many of you know, my wife and I have been trying to get Faye professional help. We have an emergency psychiatric evaluation scheduled because she's been making wild accusations and… Maggie, I said. Maggie opened her laptop. The projection screen behind my father went black, then filled with a spreadsheet. 47 rows highlighted in red. Dates, amounts, account numbers. These are transactions from the Ridgewood Community Church donation account, Maggie said. Her voice was calm, professional. On the left, you see the date and amount of each donation. On the right, you see matching transfers to Gerald Hobbs's personal checking account at Chase Bank. Account number ending in 7743. The room erupted, voices overlapping, chairs scraping. That's privileged financial information, my father shouted. You can't just… It's public record, James Whitfield said. He stood and addressed the congregation. I'm James Whitfield, attorney at law. My client, Faye Terrell, hired forensic accountant Maggie Chen to audit the church finances after she discovered irregularities. What you're seeing is a legal forensic audit. Every transaction is documented and cross-referenced with bank statements from both the church account and Mr. Hobbs's personal account. Pastor Raymond stood slowly. His face had gone gray. Gerald, is this true? It's a misunderstanding, my father said. His hands were shaking. Those were reimbursements. Approved reimbursements for church expenses. I paid out of pocket. There are no approval records, Maggie said. I contacted the church board. No reimbursements over $500 require board approval according to your bylaws. You never sought approval for any of these transfers. Show the detail, I said. Maggie clicked to the next slide. A side-by-side comparison. Church donation records on the left, my father's bank statements on the right. March 15, 2023. Church receives $1,200 donation from the Martinez family, earmarked for mission work. Same day, Gerald Hobbs transfers $1,200 to his personal account labeled Discretionary Pastoral Fund. June 8, 2023. Church receives $800 from the Women's Auxiliary Bake Sale for building repairs. 2 days later, Gerald transfers $800 to his personal account labeled Maintenance Reimbursement. No receipts, no work orders, no approval. October 3, 2024. Church receives $2,400 from the Thompson Estate for youth ministry programs. Same day, Gerald transfers $2,400 to his personal account labeled Program Support. The youth ministry budget shows no corresponding expense. The room was dead silent now. My father stood at the podium, his mouth opening and closing. My mother stood up. This is a targeted attack from a disturbed young woman who's been spiraling since her husband died. We've been trying to help her. We've consulted with Dr. Benjamin Voss, a licensed psychiatrist, who agrees that Faye is experiencing a break with reality. She's invented these accusations because she's angry that we couldn't attend Nathan's funeral. You skipped the funeral to meet with Dr. Voss about committing me, I said. The gasps were louder this time. We were trying to help you. You were trying to get a 72-hour psychiatric hold so you could file for guardianship and take control of my husband's estate. I pulled out the second document. This is the petition you filed Friday morning. Emergency psychiatric evaluation for Faye Terrell, claiming I'm a danger to myself due to erratic behavior and refusal of care. Signed by Gerald and Patricia Hobbs. Co-signed by Dr. Benjamin Voss, who has never met me, never evaluated me, and based his medical recommendation entirely on your descriptions of my behavior. I handed copies to Pastor Raymond and 2 board members. My husband died 3 weeks ago. I inherited $8. 5,000,006 properties in Manhattan. My parents saw an opportunity. They've been running a PR campaign for 2 weeks, telling neighbors I'm unstable, telling church members I'm grieving badly, building a case that I need to be managed. The psychiatric hold was step 1. Guardianship was step 2. Once they had control of my finances, they planned to pay for my sister's $48,000 wedding with my inheritance. That's insane, Chloe said, but her voice was too high. Here's the email you forwarded me by accident. I held up my phone. Subject line, wedding budget. Excel spreadsheet showing $48,000 in expenses with a column labeled F accounts. My accounts, Chloe. You were literally budgeting how to spend my money before you'd even gotten access to it. Chloe's face went red. She looked at our mother. Our mother looked away. This is slander, my father said. His voice was desperate now. Patricia, call our lawyer, call Dr. Voss. These are lies from a mentally ill. Dr. Voss won't help you, James Whitfield said. We have recordings of his conversations with your wife discussing the guardianship timeline before he'd ever been asked to evaluate Faye. We also have witness testimony about Patricia's 2016 attempt to gain guardianship over her own mother, Dorothy Chen, using the exact same tactics. Isolation, whisper campaign, Dr. Voss's signature on a medical recommendation without a proper evaluation. He gestured to a woman in the third row. She stood slowly. Helen Torres, James said. Patricia's sister. Tell them what you told us. Aunt Helen looked at my mother. There was something like sadness in her face, but also something harder. Mom, our mother, Dorothy, was completely healthy in 2016, Helen said. Sharp as a tack, but Patricia wanted access to her money. She told Dorothy's neighbors that Mom was declining, that she was forgetting things, that she needed help. She isolated her from friends. She brought in Dr. Voss to sign a competency evaluation based on Patricia's word alone, no actual examination. If it hadn't been for Mom's personal doctor testifying that she was sound, Patricia would have gotten control of everything. Mom died 6 months later. Natural causes, heart failure. But she died knowing her own daughter had tried to steal from her. The silence in the room was suffocating. My mother stood frozen, her face white as paper. Pastor Raymond looked at my father. Gerald, did you take money from the church? My father opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. They were loans, he finally said. I was going to pay them back, We had expenses. Chloe's wedding, medical bills, the house needs repairs. You thought you'd get away with it, I said. Because you always get away with it. Because everyone in this room has always believed whatever you said. Because I'm just the difficult daughter who doesn't know her place. I looked around at the congregation. At Mrs. Patterson, who'd once told me I should be more grateful to have such devoted parents. At Michael Reed, who'd probably heard my mother's version of events a dozen times. At all the people who'd watched me grow up in the shadow of my golden child sister and never once questioned the narrative. My husband died 3 weeks ago, I said. I'm grieving. That's all I'm doing. Grieving the man I loved. The man who loved me enough to spend 8 months documenting my parents' pattern of financial abuse and manipulation because he knew they'd try this. Grief isn't a mental illness. Grief is what happens when you lose someone who actually cared about you. My voice broke on the last word. James put a hand on my shoulder. The guardianship hearing is tomorrow, I said. But I don't think we'll need it. Do you, Dad? My father said nothing. He stood at the podium like a man watching his entire life collapse. Pastor Raymond spoke quietly. Gerald, I'm going to need you to step down as treasurer effective immediately. The board will meet tomorrow to discuss next steps. I think we should also contact the district attorney. Ray, please. You stole from God's house, Gerald. There's nothing I can do. My father's face crumpled. My mother grabbed his arm. They left through the side door, Chloe trailing behind them. The last thing I saw was my sister's face, white and shocked and furious. I stood in the fellowship hall for another 20 minutes, accepting apologies from people who should have known better. Mrs. Patterson cried. Michael Reed shook my hand and said he was sorry. The church board promised a full independent audit. At 9:15 p.m., I left. James and Maggie walked me to my car. "You okay?" James asked. "No," I said, "but I will be." The guardianship petition will be withdrawn by morning. No judge would grant it now, and they know it. What happens to my father? Depends on whether the church presses charges. If he returns the money and cooperates, probably probation and restitution. If not, embezzlement from a non-profit is a felony. I nodded. I felt hollow, like someone had scraped out my insides and left me empty. "Nathan would be proud of you," Maggie said. I started crying then, standing in the parking lot under the streetlights. Not quiet tears, ugly, gasping sobs that I'd been holding back for 3 weeks. James and Maggie stood on either side of me and didn't say anything, just let me fall apart. 2 days later, I received an email from my father's lawyer. The guardianship petition was withdrawn. My father had resigned from the church board and agreed to full restitution. My mother wanted to open a dialogue about reconciliation. I deleted the email. A week after that, I visited Nathan's grave at Woodlawn Cemetery. It was a cold November morning, the kind where your breath fogs in front of you and the grass crunches underfoot. I brought coffee, 2 cups, even though I'd drink both, and sat on the cold ground next to his headstone. "You were right," I said. "About everything. I wish you'd been wrong. I wish I'd been wrong about them. But you weren't." The wind moved through the trees. Somewhere a crow called. "I'm not okay yet," I said, "but I'm going to be. You made sure of that." I stayed for an hour. When I left, I felt lighter. 6 months later, I was standing in my office at the museum, looking at the finalized layout for the Resilience in Art exhibition, when Marissa knocked. "There's someone here to see you. Says she's your aunt?" Aunt Helen stood in the hallway holding a small box wrapped in tissue paper. "I should have reached out years ago," she said, "after what Patricia tried to do to Mom. I knew the pattern. I knew she'd come for you eventually. I'm sorry I didn't warn you." You testified for me, that's enough." She handed me the box. "This was Mom's. She wanted you to have it." Inside was a bracelet, silver, delicate, with a small charm shaped like a star. "She called you her little star," Helen said. "Did you know that?" I didn't trust myself to speak. I just shook my head. "She did. She said you were the one who'd make it out, the one who'd build something real." I wore the bracelet every day after that. My parents tried to contact me exactly once more. A letter from my mother on my birthday, saying she forgave me for the misunderstanding and hoped we could move past it. I didn't respond. Chloe got married 6 months later. I wasn't invited. I heard through Aunt Helen that they had a small ceremony with 20 guests and a cake from Costco. I sold 3 of Nathan's properties and kept the Chelsea loft. I used the money to establish the Nathan Terrell Memorial Scholarship for first-generation college students studying art history at Columbia. The first recipient was a girl from the Bronx who reminded me of myself at 22. Brilliant, hungry, determined to build something that mattered. I still work at the museum. I still curate exhibitions. I still wake up some mornings and forget Nathan's gone, reach for him in bed, remember all over again that he's not there. But I'm okay. Not healed. I'm not sure you heal from losing someone like Nathan, but okay. If you're watching this and you've ever had someone in your life who saw you clearly, who loved you, not despite your sharp edges but because of them, hold on to that. Protect it. And if that person is gone, honor what they saw in you by refusing to shrink yourself for people who never deserved your light in the first place. If you've ever been told you're too much, or not enough, or difficult by people who benefited from your silence, type, "I am exactly enough" in the comments. Or if you're still finding your way to that truth, type, "I'm learning." Both are valid. Both are brave. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I still have Nathan's Columbia sweatshirt. I still wear it on cold mornings. It doesn't smell like him anymore. I finally washed it, but it smells like home.